Members of the audience, there's copies of the agenda on the back table that we'll be referring to. This meeting of the Kern County Planning Commission is called to order. Clerk, please call the roll.
Commissioner Ashley, Commissioner Brooks,
Here.
Commissioner Dunbar,
Here.
Commissioner Oliver, Commissioner Skidmore,
Here.
Mr. Van Wyk,
Here.
Mr. Johnson,
Here.
Ms. Simon,
Here.
Commission member announcements or reports. Would any commissioner or staff like to make an announcement or report? Okay, approval of the minutes. You've received a copy of the minutes from the October 23rd meeting. If there's no corrections, I'll entertain a motion to approve.
Motion to approve the minutes?
I'll second.
All those in favor say aye.
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 Items withdrawn or request for continuance. Mr. Johnson will review these items which have been withdrawn or requests for continuance, please.
Yes, thank you, Chair Dunbar, members of the commission. There are no items being withdrawn. However, 2 items are being requested for continuance. The first item is a specific plan amendment, general plan amendment, zone change, and precise development plan in maps 80 and 81. The applicant is Malibu Vineyards by McIntosh and Associates, and staff is recommending a continuance to January 22nd, 2026. The second item is a specific plan amendment, zone change, and precise development plan in map 101. The applicant is Gerald Ogden by McIntosh and Associates, and staff is recommending a continuance to January 22nd, 2026. I would note on the agenda itself where these projects are laid out in its entirety, number 3 has a CA in front of it, and that should not be. There should be no CA on that. So again, this is a continuance request, and I'd like to note that approval of a continuance when there's only 3 commissioners, it does require 3 affirmative votes, so we would require a unanimous vote from your commission to continue both these items. And with that, that concludes the reading of the items requested for continuance.
Thank you, Mr. Johnson.
I'll move to approve items number 2 and number 3 for a request for continuance.
I will second that.
Please vote on screen.
Three ayes, 2 absent, motion carries.
Okay, Mr. Johnson, will you review the consent agenda, please?
Yes, thank you. These are items scheduled before the Planning Commission which are being recommended for approval by staff. The applicant has been informed of any special conditions and has no objection. The hearing on these items may be expedited if no member of the commission or audience wishes to comment or ask questions on the project. There are 2 items on the consent agenda this evening. The first is specific plan amendment 17 and zone change 73, map 165, and includes an exclusion from agricultural preserve number 18. The applicant is the Gilberts by LAV Pinnacle. The project is located just west of the Bear Valley Road and Cummings Valley Road intersection in the Tehachapi area. The request is to amend the Greater Tehachapi Area Specific and Community Plan from map code 8.1 2.7 to map code 5.7 2.7 or a more restrictive designation. It also includes a zone change from A to E5 RS or a more restrictive district and a request for exclusion from agricultural preserve, all on a 19.76 acre parcel. Staff's recommendation is for the Planning Commission to recommend the Board of Supervisors approve the specific plan amendment as requested, adopt resolution and recommended findings, and enact ordinance approving the zone change as requested, and approve the agricultural exclusion as requested as set forth in the attached draft resolutions. The second item on the consent agenda is zoning ordinance amendment 2025B, which are revisions to various chapters of Title 19, which is commonly referred to as the zoning ordinance. And these are related to low barrier navigation centers, emergency shelters, target population, supportive transitional and farm labor housing, residential facilities, subdivision maps, CRV recycling centers, breeding and raising of animals in the R1 district, accessory dwelling units and junior accessory dwelling units, density limits in the R2, and agricultural and non-agricultural trucking facilities. The Planning and Natural Resources Department is the applicant, And staff's recommendation is for the Planning Commission to recommend to the Board of Supervisors to enact ordinance approving revisions to Title 19 as recommended by staff as set forth in the attached draft resolution. Now, this item was initially intended to be off consent, and so we are prepared to discuss it if you would like, or if any members of the audience would like. I did speak with some members of the audience, and if we have to make any clarifications between now and the Board of Supervisors meeting, that we can. And again, because this action, on both these cases is advisory, and items will be forwarded to the Board of Supervisors for final consideration, a simple majority vote is all that's required. We do not need a unanimous vote. And that completes the reading of the consent agenda items.
Thank you. Is there any member of the audience that would like to speak on any of these items? If you do, they will be removed from the consent agenda and heard in their regular order. Is there any member of the commission that wishes to remove any of these items from the consent agenda to be heard in the regular order? Seeing none, I'll entertain a motion from the commission on items 1 and 4. Would you like to speak? Yeah. Okay, then we'll pull that from the regular agenda. Or we'll
Item
pull
number
that.
4, correct?
What's that?
Item
Yeah,
number
so
4.
you want to speak on the zoning, or?
No, I'm not, I would like to speak on the ag and the non-ag zoning for trucking facilities.
Item number 4.
Okay,
Which is item 4, Chair Dunbar, yes.
okay. So we'll pull item 4. We'll continue with the consent agenda on item 1 right now, and then that'll be heard in the regular order.
I'll motion to approve item 1 on the consent agenda.
I'll second that.
Okay, please vote on screen.
Three ayes, 2 absent, motion carries.
And Mr. Johnson, do you want to review the right to appeal if there is any on this one?
Yes, thank you. There is no right of appeal for projects where the Planning Commission's action is advisory to the Board of Supervisors. And this first item is being considered by, or scheduled to be considered by the Board of Supervisors on December 9th.
Thank you. Public presentations. This portion of the meeting is reserved if people want to speak on anything not on the agenda, so we will get to number 4. If anybody wants to speak on anything that's within the commission's jurisdiction, you'd be limited to 2 minutes. Seeing none, I'll move on. Public hearing. The first item you'll hear tonight is number 4 on the regular agenda. I guess the applicant's obviously the county, so we'll just let you go ahead and give your presentation.
Yes, thank you. So this is amendments to the ordinance code of the County of Kern, 2025B, again, otherwise known as the zoning ordinance. So the purpose of the zoning ordinance, to provide a little bit of background, is to protect public health, safety, and welfare on all properties throughout unincorporated Kern County. This is whether it's owned by individuals, firms, corporations, or public agencies to the extent permitted by law. In other words, zoning does not apply to China Lake or Edwards Air Force Base. Zoning shall not supersede any other local, state, or federal requirements. And when there are other agencies or jurisdictions that have regulations that govern the same type of use or activity, the more restrictive provisions shall apply. The purpose of amendments, when they do occur, are several reasons. One of them may be to reflect recent court decisions, and that was evident when we did the oil and gas updates to the zoning ordinance. Maintain consistency with the general plan. And again, when we just had the housing element updated into the general plan, then you need to go back and update the ordinance to reflect that. Modernize outdated or unclear provisions. I mean, we have videotape rentals as a by right use in commercial zones, and unless the Blockbuster in Bend, Oregon wants to expand down to California, I don't think we have any more videotape rentals. And when there's a 500-page document, there's always the need to correct minor errors or technical issues for clarity. The proposed amendments tonight really are threefold. They are to implement the housing element, they are board initiated, and there are clarifying amendments. The housing element was adopted by the Board of Supervisors earlier this year, and then HCD, or Housing Community Development with California State, they found our housing element compliant about 5 months ago. There are several programs within the housing element that we committed to. One of them was to establish an ADU informational guidelines. And this is in part because, and I'll get to a little bit more, is because the state laws change almost annually as it relates to ADU guideline or ADU standards. And so our ordinance is now out of compliance. So what we are going to do is establish an informational guide, and then the ordinance will just reflect that we'll comply with the government code as amended from time to time. And that way, if there are additional changes, we're only updating a guidebook as opposed to coming back and updating the ordinance. We committed to raising the maximum density in the R2 district from 16 to 20 dwelling units an acre. We are committed to adjusting where supportive and transitional housing occur, housing for agricultural employees, residential care facilities. We are adding those to different zones. We're also expanding where emergency shelters can be located, and we are adding low-barrier navigation centers to the ordinance. This matrix here shows single-family and multifamily uses that are currently permitted by right with a P and conditionally permitted with a C in the various zone districts. Again, there's no changes to any of these. Most of the changes occur with the more targeted types of uses, which is, again, supportive housing, transitional housing, farm labor housing. And what you see in the black color are no changes, but what you see in the red color are either changes from where it may have been conditionally permitted, is now permitted by right, or where it may not have been permitted in the past is now either conditionally permitted or permitted by right. And again, an example is the low barrier navigation centers. You can see in compliance with state law, we are adding that to the multifamily, and then also into some commercial and industrial zones on the bottom. The other was a board-initiated amendment, and earlier this year, there was a referral made from the board for the planning department to look at how CRV recycling centers are being permitted because there were some compatibility issues with public health and safety impacts. We reported back to the board in June of this year, and after some deliberation, the board directed planning to bring back some ordinance revisions to require all new CRV centers to obtain a conditional use permit in commercial and industrial zones, which excludes the commercial office zone. There will be no ability to have recycling in a commercial office zone. And this will allow for case-by-case review to ensure site compatibility with surrounding land uses and for your commission to apply appropriate conditions as necessary. There are some clarifying amendments. I didn't realize until you get into planning that the omission of a comma or the ill placement of a comma makes a world of difference. And so publicly, I apologize to my 5th grade English teacher, Mr. Hubler, who I said that grammar didn't matter. But we are correcting some references in the definitions to refer to chapter versus section number. We are, and I'll come back to the second bullet point, we are revising some wording for residential subdivision maps so it reads the same, because right now in the A, A1, and NR districts, it reads differently. So we want it to read the same so it's clear. And then also breeding and raising of animals, clarify that it is allowed in the NR1 zone. However, it has to be accessory use by residents or the occupant. We were getting requests that were coming in saying, I have a vacant piece of R1 land and I want to put animals on it. And that is just not the intent of the R1 zone. Agriculture and non-agricultural trucking facilities, we were including the option for non-agricultural trucks in the A zone and the NR, which is natural resource zone districts. Right now, they are permitted to backhaul. They have to have ag-related going out, but they can backhaul back, return back to site with non-ag materials. And so based on where we were going, we were adding non-agricultural trucking facilities in the A zone and the NR districts, okay, but removing trucking facilities from the A1 district. And the reason for doing that is the A zones and the NR zones, they're typically further away from residential properties. Unlike the A1 district, those can be near residential sites. These still require a conditional use permit, but we want to try to pull the trucking away from residential type uses because there is typically a compatibility issue. I do know this is what the members in the audience would like to speak about. And then however we approve it here, I would note, again, there is ability to change it between now and the Board of Supervisors. So these amendments are necessary to implement the general plan housing element. They're necessary to maintain consistency with state, federal land use laws, to respond to local land use concerns and reflect the board's direction to strengthen regulatory oversight on CRV recycling operations and improve clarity in the interpretation and implementation of the ordinance. Overall, they demonstrate the county's ongoing commitment to responsible land use planning. So staff's recommendation is to advise the Planning Commission to recommend the Board of Supervisors adopt the recommended findings and approve the amendments of the ordinance code of the County of Kern as set forth in the attached draft resolution. And that completes my prepared remarks.
Thank you. I invite those who are opposed to this request to come forward and be heard. Please state and spell your name, and you'll have 2 minutes. You come to this microphone right here.
My name is Dave Laut, Daveelaut. So, okay. So I want to go with the egg and the non-egg trucking. 15 years ago, I came here and I asked for how's the egg zoning, can we park the trucks or not? Then very clear answer, county say no, because the egg is egg, expo is not industrial. Trucking is industrial and commercial. You cannot park the trucks. But now you guys saying the egg can be park the trucks. But how we can define, we been 15 years buying the land like a $500,000 acre. Now it's a $10,000 acre for ag land. How you can define? Second thing, it's okay, that one I understand if you want to be extend. But how uniform ag land can do? We paving, right now what we're doing in the parking, we paving, make sure it's asphalt, proper lights, proper gates. How the ag can define same thing, how you guys can control the dust over there, how you guys can do the proper lighting, what kind of conditional permit you guys gonna be issue, what kind of conditions you guys gonna be have, if you guys gonna be. And what one that we saying, A1 and A is not all the cases. A1 is not all the time close to houses, and ag exclusive is not all the times away from the houses. Sometimes it's close to the residential area too, ag land. So we want to make sure county is beautiful. We want to make sure everyone proper uniform. We don't want to Mickey and Mouse, oh, you are here, you can park the truck here. Ag land is all over the Bakersfield. It's gonna be the big mess. You don't think ag is away from the residential, ag land is so close. So you can see that you don't want to park the trucks like ag land, so close to your houses. I live close to the in the little outside from the Bakersfield, but we don't want to park the trucks over there because the ag land is next to my house. We want to make sure industrial zoning is industrial, ag land is supposed to be ag land. It's somebody, okay, we understand if somebody ag business, they own the trucks, they can park it, but they cannot use for the commercial use. It's gonna be the very, very heavy trucks. It can be, if we gonna be used for the commercial use, it's gonna be the big mess. It's not a small thing. Bakersfield trucking is grown. It's not a 10 years ago or 15 years ago. There is a lot of people gonna complain. Residential, oh, there's everywhere on the truck in Bakersfield. So Thank you. That's all I'm gonna be at.
Okay, thank you. Is there anyone else who'd like to speak in opposition? You guys have a response, or do you have any questions for him?
So you've heard his concerns, and it sounds like he wants to remove non-ag trucking as what staff is proposing. So your commission can exclude that from all the other changes, that's fine, and we will, when we go to Board of Supervisors, we will note that this is what was proposed, this is the Planning Commission's direction. Or you can include that, and then they can speak at the Board of Supervisors, and the board can remove it there if they so choose. So it's really up to your commission how you want to proceed.
I don't think I'm following on what is being changed that he's opposed to.
I think you have one more speaker, yes.
My name is Avi Nagra. I just want to give a clarification. What's being changed here is currently, if you want to park any kind of a trucks, you are required to park in a zoning M1, M2, or M3 with conditional use permit or industrial use permit, right? What is being confusing part over here is some people are buying agricultural land and they are parking commercial trucks on their agricultural land, not just parking their own rigs, but they are also renting out spaces and generating commercial income while parking those trucks on the agricultural land right here. Mr. Dave Lott and along me, we have lands which are zoned properly M1 and M2, which are designed for medium and heavy use trucking, right? So why a person would park a truck at the facilities in which cost a lot, which cost more to park when they're gonna get the opportunity to park at an agricultural land, which would be much cheaper. So this regulation is a little bit unclear that who will be allowed to park. Is just the farm owner or the person who owns the agricultural land can park over there, or he can outsource the parking to the other people and they can generate revenue by allowing people park on the agricultural land. That is what is need to be openly discussed right here, and that's what's the reason for oppose.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
And the intent would be, as he noted, it could be outsourced. But again, it would require a conditional use permit, so your commission could choose not to have any outsourcing and have it required of just the property owner. But the intent was to have it, be able to outsource and use it as revenue generating.
But in order to have the revenue generating, they would have to have a conditional use permit.
In the A and the NR zones as proposed by staff, that is correct. And again, however your commission votes, we'll take that to the board.
Okay. Does anybody else on the commission have any questions?
I have a quick question for staff. Page 199, discussing M1 permitted uses, and then page 212, discussing M2 permitted uses for residential. It looks like M1, you're allowing maybe some more expansive supportive housing or transitional housing. I just wanted to know maybe the reasoning behind not including transitional housing in the M2 section.
The reason for transitional and supportive housing in M2 that requires a conditional use permit, if it's 6 or fewer, is because single-family homes require a conditional use permit if there's 6 or fewer.
Great. And then I know that there's been discussion in the past of kind of confusion around the tiny home model, which in some cases could be classified under these categories. Was there any interest in having tiny homes in particular called out in these areas for residential uses?
We didn't look specifically at tiny homes such as Hope on Heart, excuse me, off of in Oildale. So we didn't look at tiny homes. Generally, we look at the density for that. So like supportive and transitional housing are to be meant to be looked at as the same as single-family homes. So you really can't treat supportive housing any different than you would treat a single-family home. And again, that kind of goes back to your M2, but we didn't look specifically at tiny homes at this juncture.
Okay. And then I'm obviously familiar with some of these terms. Is there, and I didn't look clearly, is there an index that describes what rehabilitation facilities or supportive housing would be?
Yes, if you, and I can get the page number, we added definitions for supportive housing, transitional housing, and target population.
Great, okay. I agree with the gentleman and his comments related to removing the agricultural trucking parking element. I'd be interested to hear what we need to propose, if other commissioners agree, what page and what we need to propose.
Go ahead, Mr. Shelton.
Oh, I'm sorry, I can find the page numbers. I thought you were looking for comments from your other commissioners.
Either or, doesn't matter.
So I think, Commissioner Skidmore, what we'll do is, depending on how you want to go, anything that related to non-ag trucking, we will unstrike that, or I should say unadd it, so that way there will be no reference to non-ag trucking. It'll remain as ag trucking only. The question is, though, for the commission is, we were removing ag trucking from the A1 zone. Do you want to include it in the A1 zone, keep it as is, or do you want to exclude that? But we will exclude the non-ag portion if that is your desire.
I think my concern is allowing the trucking to be parked in A1 areas. So that would be remove it from the agricultural permitting, correct?
We could do that.
Okay.
But we also were requesting the NR, Natural Resource District 2.
Okay.
I mean, if you're going to remove it from the A, my thought is go ahead and remove it from the NR. And then what we revised the definition of ag trucking to include non-ag trucking, and we would take that out so the ag trucking definition would remain as is and not as proposed by staff.
Right, because I think the goal is to have ag trucking and non-ag trucking parked in the M1, M2, M3 zones.
Which is currently allowed, yes. There would
Okay.
be no change to that.
Okay. So I think that would be my suggestion, is to only allow the non-ag trucking and ag trucking to be parked in M1, M2, M3 zones. So whatever that would look like.
That would not require any changes
Okay.
that currently exist.
Okay.
I have one quick question on the, for you, Mr. Johnson. On the changes for the supporting housing, transitional housing, so that's all driven by the housing element by the state?
It's driven by the government code, which is what our housing element complied with. And then we're just implementing the programs in our housing element. Basically, we said we would comply with the government code in our housing element, and so now we are making those changes to comply with the government code and
if
comply
you-
with, implement our housing element to
And
comply
if you
with the
don't
government code.
comply, that affects funding and, or,
It absolutely could, yes,
Okay.
absolutely.
And this is state code, correct? So the definitions are based off of California code.
Yes, and the health and safety code also.
So for your motion, are we actually changing anything that first staff recommended? Or are we keeping it the same?
yeah, can you tell us how we should make the
Absolutely.
motion?
I guess, can you clarify the comments from the public versus maybe what I'm asking for, and see if.
No,
what
I
the
think what you're
descriptor-
asking for is what the public is asking for, which is to not, for a zone to remain ag trucking only. No non-ag trucking in the A zone. Strictly ag trucking, which is the way it currently is written. Not as proposed, but the way it's currently written. And then the M1, M2, and M3 will allow ag trucking or non-ag trucking. Again, no change there, and we weren't changing the M1, M2, or M3.
Okay,
We were only going to add the non-ag to the A and the NR. So what we will do as part of the motion is we will exclude any non-ag trucking uses. So my thought is we'll still recommend the supportive housing, transitional housing, emergency shelter changes, low barrier navigation center changes. We will exclude any of the non-ag trucking. My question, though, is we were striking from the A1 zone ag trucking. Do you want to strike that from the A1 zone, or you want to leave that as is and still allow it with a conditional use permit?
I would like to still allow it,
Absolutely.
as is today.
As is today, yes. Absolutely.
Okay, so we'll entertain a motion to exclude non-ag in A and, what is it, N?
I tell you, what we'll do is we can advise the planning commission, or recommend the board of supervisors adopt the recommended findings and approve the amendments of the ordinance code of the county of Kern, Title 19, excluding any changes to trucking facilities as set forth in the attached draft resolution. And that way, we will make no changes to the trucking facilities.
Sounds good to me. I will make that motion.
I'll second that motion.
Okay, please vote on screen.
Three ayes, two absent, motion carries.
Okay, do you want to brief us on the next process of this?
Yeah, and again,
item?
there's no appeal to that. This project, or the zoning ordinance amendments, are scheduled for December 16th board consideration, so there is no appeal on what you just did. It was just advisory in nature.
Thank you. Okay, next, we need to vote on the calendar for 2026.
I'll make a motion for the nominating committee to include the three of us. That's that first item. For selection of planning commission chairman and vice chairman for the 2026 calendar year. I don't know if we need to, do we need to vote on that one, or is it just a,
That does not require a formal vote, but you will return on the December 11th meeting with your decision, and then that individuals for the chair and the new chair or vice chair will take effect the first meeting in January, which is January 22nd.
Okay, thank you. And do we need to vote on the schedule?
You just need to concur amongst yourself that the nominees, as mentioned by Commissioner
Oh,
Skidmore, are
okay.
sufficient. No need to vote.
Okay, so
Sounds good.
they were voluntold.
sufficient. Okay, so miscellaneous item number 2 is the planning commission hearing schedule for 2026.
I move to approve the 2026 schedule.
Yeah, second that.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye?
And just to add a little commentary on that, meetings are the second and fourth Thursday of every month. However, January, November, and December are one meeting a month due to the holidays. And the schedule is available on our county website, Kern County, or kernplanning.com.
Thank you. Next planning commission's meeting scheduled for December 11th. If there's no further business, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
I'll move to approve, move to adjourn.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye.